Shalom and howdy. The mind is, well, let me say one thing. First of all, how proud we at Texas A&M University are that this is the largest March of Remembrance in the state of Texas, maybe the country, but certainly the largest one here. So congratulations to all of you. And if you don't mind me bragging on A&M a little bit, let me also point out that the very first Hillel at any college in the history of the United States of America was the one here at Texas A&M University. And Rabbi Tarlow can tell you that. And we came up with the name Hillel, somebody here, and we graciously and humbly allow the other universities to use that name, right? The mind is has two things in it that are at polar opposites. The human mind has one thing, the ability to forget, that is both a blessing and a tragedy. It is a blessing in that, as psychiatrists will tell you, it allows you to forget the bad things that happened in your life and the things that take away from your peace of mind. But it is a tragedy because it also pushes to the recesses of your mind those things that are absolutely too hard to remember and too painful to remember. And the problem with that, of course, is that generations and generations come up without their parents talking to them about those tragedies. Now, I do not believe for a minute that anybody with more than a sixth grade education actually believes that the Holocaust did not happen. I can't believe there is a human being that stupid. But I do believe that those people that deny it are people who don't want to admit that their mindset and their organization that they associate with could be a part of something that bad. And I think that's the only reason for denial. One of the things that was a huge blessing to me was my wife Charlotte befriended a rabbi named Ezekiel in Chicago in 1991. And at that time, the Iron Curtain was coming down in the former Soviet Union. And he had an organization called Wings of Eagles. And Wings of Eagles was destined to get children from the former Soviet Union out and immigrate to Israel. And so we asked Charlotte, and of course Charlotte volunteered me and gave Rabbi Ezekiel my fax number. Rule number one, never give your fax number to a rabbi. And we raised money. It was just a group of only Catholics that raised money and got about 5 plane loads of kids out of the Soviet Union into Israel. And they asked us if we would go. No, it's okay. And they asked us if we would go and meet those kids, and that's the important part. And the important part about that is, although it's not at the scale of the Holocaust right now, the stuff inside the Holocaust is happening right now. It's happening in this country. It is happening in the former Soviet Union. It happened when Saddam Hussein killed every single living Jew and hung them in Iraq. It is happening all over the world. The only thing that allows you, and that's from talking to those kids about how they were treated in Ukraine and Kiev and parts of the Soviet Union. And the ones that are still there are probably still being treated that way. The only thing necessary for evil to prevail is for good to stay silent. That's what happened in Germany. That's what happens in the Soviet Union. And that's why you being here is one of the most important things that we can give as a legacy to our students and to our children and to our grandchildren. Never stay silent. What happened in Germany started with the spoken word, and nobody responded to that spoken word. And when that happened, it became a part of the propaganda and was accepted. And so every single time we see, no matter who we are, that kind of treatment of human beings in our country or any place else, we have to speak. And so I am deeply thankful for a place like Texas A&M, and I'm deeply thankful for all of you for being the good that is willing to speak. God bless you.
Howdy. On behalf of Texas A&M University's nearly 70,000 students, I am honored to be able to provide remarks on the day of the March of Remembrance, an event that is so critical in the effort to take a stand against anti-Semitism in our country. It is wonderful to be joined by so many Aggies, university and community leaders, friends, and neighbors to come together on this important day. I have been fortunate to learn more about Judaism and the history of the Holocaust during my time as a student through Shabbat dinners at our campus Hillel and a 10-day trip to Israel, where I got to break bread, laugh, dance, and even cry with so many Jewish people. This allowed me to grow even stronger in my conviction to denounce anti-Semitism in all of its forms and bring that perspective back to my campus, along with 40 other Aggies who joined me on that trip. By knowing our peers, we gain greater access to understanding the lived experiences of one another. At times, time can separate us from tragedy. It is more important than ever now to remember, reconcile, and fight anti-Semitism in our country. The Student Senate at Texas A&M has a history of standing up for our Jewish campus community, with resolutions passed in both the 68th and 70th sessions in support of Jewish students on our campus. With the recent addition of the Student Senate's Diversity Committee, I am encouraged about ensuring that voices from all different parts of our Aggie community are represented. I would like to thank all of the students, faculty, and staff who have worked with the March of Remembrance of Texas to bring this important event to our campus. This event, in every way, aligns with Texas A&M's core values, and I am proud to represent our students here today. As you march today, I challenge you to think about the ways that you can combat anti-Semitism in your own environments. We know that hate thrives in the darkness. It is the small things we do in our everyday lives that eradicate the darkness and fill our lives and the lives of those around us with light. However, it starts with us. Thank you.
Thank you very much. What I say will be very less emotional than what you've heard so far. A group of A&M professors, Mark Cecilio, a Texas Pediatrician of the Year, and Adam Seep, a well-known historian, and myself, with the support, we hope, of the Holocaust and Genocide Commission, we'll be looking at intergenerational effects of the Holocaust. So the mantra here is never forget. But how can we forget genetic changes that we don't know happened because people were subject to concentration camps and their genes changed? How do we know what the intergenerational psychological effects are in the families of concentration camp survivors? Or Dr., if you can say that, Joseph Mengele's victims? What about the economics of the survivors' families, their children, their grandchildren, their great-grandchildren? So that's what we're about to embark upon with a large team from all colleges across this great university. So before we can remember, we must know. But before we know, we must learn. Before we can learn, there has to be documentation. Before we can document anything, we have to observe it. Before we can observe it, we need historians to tell us what happened and to whom. Before we have historians tell us what happened and to whom we need doctors and scientists to find the genetic, psychological, and economic effects. Before the doctors and scientists can do that, we need to be welcomed by the concentration camp survivors, their children, their grandchildren, etc., so we can actually measure that. And only that way can we get to knowing the true effects, the full effects of the great catastrophe. Finally, I'm not escaping the emotion. On a personal note, on the flyer for this March of Remembrance, the 4-star in the photo on the right is for the Pittsburgh Massacre and is for Joyce Feinberg. Her husband, Steve, was a member of the National Academy of Science, a statistician, and somebody I frequently interacted with on forensic issues. Steve was into forensic science, as I am. He was editor, handled my JFK paper and the forensics there. He died bravely of cancer about 2 years ago and worked until a few days of his passing. The fact that his wife, a vibrant member of the Pittsburgh synagogue and community, was slaughtered where his funeral was something many will take to their graves. We remember.
Howdy. My name is Caitlin Dillingham, and I'm the president of Christians United for Israel here at Texas A&M. Last spring, Texas A&M's Senator Jacob Powell and Olivia Krog proposed an anti-BDS bill to our Student Senate. On March 17, 2018, this bill was passed with a majority vote of 38 for, 6 against, and 4 absentee. The main clauses of this bill state, Israel has been and continues to be one of America's strongest allies. The Student Senate stands with Jewish and Israeli students as a valued member of the Aggie family. While the Student Senate will respect the right of all students to freedom of speech, it recommends that no Texas A&M University student organization support, contribute to, or receive contributions from BDS. I believe that these bills are a huge step forward in combating anti-Semitism, strengthening the relationship between Israel and Texas A&M University, and I hope that this will make members of the community and future Aggies see that us as a university that is not just reactive, but proactive in stopping anti-Semitism and BDS from having a presence on our university. I am proud to be an Aggie, and I am proud to be a Christian who supports Israel and our Jewish students. Thank you.
My story is one of brave people that we now call righteous among the nation, or righteous Gentiles. Leah, my sister, and I were 5 and 6 the night we now call Kristallnacht, the night of the November 9th, 1938. We were horrified by the Nazi soldiers breaking into and totally demolishing our home. That night, my father and grandfather were taken to Dachau, a concentration camp that at that time was created for people who didn't want to be Nazis, and now the Jews. My parents naturally only wanted to protect us and shield us from harm. Time passed. then October 20th, 1940, and deportation. Being a Jew meant having to line up with other hundreds of Jews and march to the jailhouse of our little town, Ladenburg, and then truck to the train in Mannheim, Germany, where huge cattle cart trains were waiting for our departure. The screams and cries did not diminish when we arrived at our destination, concentration camp Gurs in occupied France, near the Spanish border. There were 34 camps in France. They were not killing camps, but they were holding camps, and people were dying every day. The screams and cries did not diminish when we arrived at our destination, concentration camp Gurs in occupied France, near the Spanish border. The men were separated from the women, and that was the last time that I ever saw my father. I remembered how everything was so dirty. Mud seemed to be everywhere. We soon realized that what we thought was mud was really human excrement, as there were no bathroom facilities. There was no running water, and every day people were dying of typhoid fever. We were each given straw to sleep on, and just one bowl out of which we ate. A French underground group made up of young people called OSE, which stands for Œuvre de Secours aux Enfants, or Agency for the Rescue of Children, managed to get entry through the barbed wire. They pretended to be the Red Cross. Their purpose was really to tell the mothers with children to let their children go, that they would do all they could, to make sure that we would be alive at the end of the war. This is how late one night we boarded a bus as I was crying and begging my mother to please let me stay with her. Crying, we boarded the bus and saw my mother for the last time waving goodbye to us. She was waving and I was crying. My mother was only 32. Yes, she gave us our lives twice. My sister and I have always lived knowing that we had a very wonderful, unselfish mother. Yes, we also wondered if we could have done the same. The next 6 years we spent trying to stay one step ahead of the pursuing Nazis. We lived in medieval castles and orphanages. We ended up with a wonderful Christian family, Monsieur and Madame Chapeau and their daughter Paulette, in their little remote town, Faverges de la Tour. They were a poor farm family, but always willing to share their meager portions with two little strange girls.
Ich hab gelernt, dass nur die Wahrheit was verändert. Manchmal ist sie schmerzhaft, doch Lüge ist in Wahrheit nur ein Kerker. Schweigen ist der Wärter. Kein Gegner ist härter. Ich will erzählen, was mich das gelehrt hat. Ich hab gemerkt, dass ich geizige Menschen Juden nannte, obwohl ich nicht einen einzigen Juden kannte. Hab gedacht, Juden erkennt man an der Nase. Stellte meine Vorurteile lange nicht in Frage. Shoah wurde unterrichtet in der Klasse, doch 6 Millionen Morde sind zu viele, sie zu fassen. Das ist Geschichte, aber mir fehlt der Bezug. Ich bin Mitte 20, was hat das mit mir zu tun? Ja klar, kann man ja verstehen. Vergangenheit soll ruhen, wenn man jung ist, will man leben. So einfach ist es nicht, es brauchte, bis ich merkte, diese Prägung ist ein Erbe, denn es lebt in meinem Herzen. Sprich, werde Licht. Mit dir bekommt die Wahrheit ein Gesicht. Es zählt, was du tust oder nicht. Für einen neuen Weg braucht es einen neuen Schritt. Sprich, werde Licht. Mit dir bekommt die Wahrheit ein Gesicht. Es zählt, was du tust oder nicht. Für einen neuen Weg braucht es einen neuen Schritt. Es ist wichtig, was heute ist. Für einen neuen Weg braucht es einen neuen Schritt. Es reicht nicht aus, sich auf die Zukunft zu fokussieren. Wer seine Zukunft kennen möchte, muss wissen, wo seine Wurzeln liegen. Also fing ich an zu recherchieren. Meine Linie waren Nazis, Soldaten, Offiziere. Das ist meine Familie. Mörder, Vergewaltiger und Diebe, die Juden gejagt haben wie Tiere. Und nach dem Krieg haben die Väter dann geschwiegen. Reden ist Silber, Schweigen ist Gold, was? Ich kann nicht glauben, dass das ja keiner gewollt hat. Ich zeige auf niemandem mit dem Finger, doch die Lügen über Juden leben heute in ihren Kindern. Es ist wichtig, was ich damit mache, denn ich merke, diese Prägung ist ein Erbe, denn es lebt in meinem Herzen. Sprich, werde Licht, mit dir bekommt die Wahrheit ein Gesicht. Es zählt.
And if you are a Jewish person, and you've got issues with Germans, I understand. But you know what? God wants to heal that. Especially if you're a second gen or a survivor, I want you to know that I know that these guys here, and of course, I'm glad you came forward, the others, have made it their commitment, their lifelong commitment, that as long as a Jewish person is still upset and troubled over the issues of the Holocaust, they will not keep silent in asking for forgiveness for the sins that their forefathers did. So if you are a Jewish person or a second gen or whatever, please take this time to come forward and let them give you a hug or something. There's something that's supernatural that happens when descendants of perpetrators connect with descendants of victims, and they connect. So feel free to come up forward here if you're in that category. If your parents were liberators or World War II veterans and they were very upset with that situation and you've got a lot of prejudice going on, feel free to come forward and just thank them for what they're doing here and let them have their healing to say, I'm sorry for what my country did to your country. So if you are in that place, please feel free to just connect here. I want for those of us here who have our personal Holocausts, I don't know, maybe you were raped, maybe something terrible happened with another race. You're black, you're Hispanic, I don't know. You've got issues with white people who have said things to you or whatever, I don't know. If you, while they're doing this, if you are willing to forgive those people who did those things to you and said those things, this would be the place and the time to do it for a moment, please. Just as an act of obedience. You don't have to feel the forgiveness. I learned that. You actually just obey God and you just say, as an act of obedience to you, Lord, I forgive so-and-so for such and such. Feel free to do that. Where you're sitting, if there's somebody that you're in your church right now, I don't know, you're holding something against somebody from there, I don't know, but will be set free. You have Ruth Steinfeld who was able to release some people that took her home in Germany. If they could do that, we could do something. Amen?